The 12-step program has helped more people get sober than almost any other method in history. It's also the reason some people never try recovery again. Both things are true, and if nobody has ever said that to you out loud, this episode is for you. This is the first episode of a series called Routes to Recovery. The reason I wanted to make it is simple. Most recovery content talks about getting sober like there's one path. Like if you don't take that path, you're doing it wrong. Or worse, you're not ready. That's not true. And that belief has cost people their lives. So over the next 5 episodes, we're going to walk through every major recovery route: the 12-step program, smart recovery, medication-assisted treatment, holistic approaches, and by the end, a framework to help you figure out which one fits you. No hierarchy, no judgment, just the map. We're starting with the most famous path, the one most people have either built their recovery on or the one they walked away from and never fully understood why: the 12-step program. Most people have a picture in their head of what this looks like: folding chairs, coffee, someone reading, "Hi, I'm Carlo and I'm an alcoholic." Some of that is accurate, some of it isn't. Here's what the 12-step program actually is. It was created in 1935 by two men, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith. Both of them had tried everything to get sober and couldn't. What they found was that talking to each other honestly, without pretense, was the thing that finally worked. What they built has 12 steps, and the steps matter, but not in the way most people think. Step 1 is admitting that you are powerless over alcohol, that your life has become unmanageable. That sentence stops a lot of people before they even start, because if you've spent years telling yourself you can control it, that it's not that bad, the word powerless feels like surrender. But here's what the program is actually asking you to do: not give up, surrender the lie that willpower alone was ever going to be enough. Steps 2 through 11 move through a process of finding a higher power, something greater than yourself, taking an honest moral inventory, making amends to people you've hurt, and building a daily practice of reflection. Step 12 is a spiritual awakening. Through these steps, you carry the message to others still suffering. That last step is important because in this model, the person who guides you, your sponsor, is someone who has already walked where you are. In the act of helping others, that's part of staying sober. The reason this model has survived for 90 years isn't tradition. It's because of a significant number of people it genuinely worked for. Here's why. Community. When you walk into an AA meeting, you are surrounded by people who understand what you're going through in a way your family, your doctor, or your therapist often can't. That's not nothing. Isolation is one of the biggest drivers of relapse. The 12-step program model breaks isolation by design. Structure. The 12 steps gives you something to do, one step at a time. When you're in early recovery and everything feels like chaos, having a clear, ordered process can be the difference between staying sober and leaving. And then there's the sponsor. This is the part that research keeps coming back to. One person further down the road than you, available by phone, accountable to you and you to them. That relationship consistently is one of the most effective elements in long-term sobriety. And then there's this, the spiritual framework. Even if you're not religious, asks you to release control of things you cannot change. For many people in addiction, the constant attempt to control the uncontrollable is part of what kept them using. The 12-step model doesn't cure that, but it gives you a way to start letting go. Here's the part the 12-step content leaves out. It doesn't work for everyone. And that is not a personal failure. That's a design reality. The higher power question, the program is explicitly spiritual. Step 2 asks you to believe that a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. For people with a spiritual or religious foundation, that's a lifeline. For people who don't have that, who are atheist, agnostic, or who carry a complicated history with religion, that step can feel like a wall. AA has adapted over time in the language around higher power. It's become more flexible, but for some people, that spiritual core is still a barrier that never fully dissolves. And if that's you, that voice saying, I can't connect to that part, that's not resistance to recovery. That's honesty. There are other paths built for you. Trauma. The 12-step model is not a clinical program. It's a peer support model. For many people, the addiction is covering unprocessed trauma, experiences that were never treated, never addressed, just buried. The 12-step program can give you community while you're healing, but it was never designed to replace trauma-informed therapy. When people expect it to do everything, it often can't, and they blame themselves for that gap. And one more thing that's harder to say. Every AA group has its own culture. Some are warm, open, and life-changing. Others are rigid. Some have dynamics that don't serve everyone. The quality of your experience can depend almost entirely on which room you walk into. That variability is real, and it matters. If you're watching this and some of this is landing, this series has 4 more episodes. Each one covers a difficult path. Subscribe so you don't miss them. Back to the hard part. So, who does the 12-step model genuinely work for? It tends to work best if you respond well to community, to shared accountability, to one person who shows up for you consistently. If a spiritual or higher power framework resonates with you, even loosely, if structure helps you move, and if you have access to meetings, which between in-person and online options is now almost everywhere, it's less likely to be the complete answer if your addiction is deeply tied to unprocessed trauma that needs clinical care. If the spiritual framework is a non-starter, or if peer support alone isn't enough for what you're carrying, and here's the most important thing I want you to hear. The 12-step program is not a test you passed or failed. It's a tool. Some tools work for some hands. The goal is sobriety, not loyalty to any particular method. So if you walked out of a meeting feeling like it wasn't for you, you didn't fail recovery. You learned something about yourself. That's actually useful. Next episode, we're looking at a recovery method that almost nobody talks about. It's science-based, it's free, no higher power required, no sponsor, and it's been quietly changing lives for decades. If the spiritual side of the 12-step program never clicked for you, I think episode 2 might be exactly what you've been looking for. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if this episode said something you needed to hear, share it. Not for the views, because someone in your life is probably in the middle of this decision right now. That voice telling you there's only one way to get sober, it's just not true.